April 1st, 2026, 33 days into Operation Epic Fury, the black water of the Strait of Hormuz was hiding a war that no radar screen in Washington had fully anticipated. On the surface, the diplomatic machinery was grinding forward. Pakistan's deputy prime minister had just landed in Beijing with a 5-point ceasefire plan. Trump's cabinet was preparing his first primetime address. Secretary of State Rubio had told Al Jazeera that U.S. objectives would be met in weeks, not months. The world believed the killing was almost over. It was not. 11 nautical miles southeast of Hengam Island, a thermal signature was moving through the choke point at 6.2 knots. U.S. airstrikes had hit Hengam just 24 hours earlier, wounding 7 IRGC personnel. The USS Newport News, a Virginia-class Block 4 nuclear attack submarine running at 200 feet below the thermocline, had been tracking this contact for 4 hours. On the passive bow array, sonar technician First Class Marcus Holt was staring at a waterfall display. The vessel above him was the Almeria Star, a 280,000-ton VLCC supertanker registered in the Marshall Islands, dark on AIS, its transponder off since March 1st. It was not empty. UANI tracking satellites had confirmed it was fully laden with Iranian crude loaded at Karg Island 10 days earlier. 2 million barrels of IRGC oil moving east toward Malaysia for a ship-to-ship transfer bound for China. The economic artery Tehran had been quietly pumping even as the war burned around it. This was Iran's ghost fleet. Since February 28th, 23 laden tankers had moved out of the Persian Gulf, generating over $3 billion in revenue for the IRGC while Operation Epic Fury burned through 11,000 strike sorties. The money was not going to reconstruction. It was going to Shahab and Imad ballistic missile reload cells and to the factories producing Shahed 238 jet propulsion variants that were still getting through layered air defenses over Tel Aviv. In the previous 4 days alone, 9 attack waves had struck Israel from Iranian soil. Cars burned in Petah Tikva, a residential block reduced to rubble in the Tel Aviv metro area. 19 Israeli civilians dead, more than 6,000 injured. Washington had one remaining pressure point, the oil, and the ghost fleet was bleeding it out. But the Almeria Star was not Commander Elena Voss's main concern aboard the Newport News. What she had on her scope was far more dangerous. 1,200 meters off the tanker's port bow, in what the crew had started calling acoustic formation, were 4 IRGC Boghammer Mark IV fast attack craft, the latest version, equipped with anti-ship torpedoes and shoulder-fired MISOG-3 man-portable air defense missiles. Escort. And directly beneath the Almeria Star's keel itself, riding the tanker's acoustic shadow, was a faint but unmistakable contact, a Kilo-class submarine. Improved variant. The one submariners called the Black Hole of the Ocean, running at 3.1 knots, completely passive. Iran had embedded a submarine inside the acoustic signature of a civilian supertanker. The doctrine came from the Q-ship tradition, using civilian infrastructure as both a shield and a Trojan horse. If Newport News fired, it risked hitting the tanker. If it surfaced and challenged, the Boghammers would engage. If it did nothing, the Kilo threaded the gap between USASW barriers and repositioned south of the 5th Fleet's carrier strike group. It was a clever setup, and it had almost worked. What the IRGC planners hadn't counted on was the P-8A Poseidon flying at 22,000 feet in emissions control mode 30 miles to the northeast. The aircraft's AN/APS-154 Advanced Airborne Sensor had been sweeping the surface with synthetic aperture radar for 6 straight hours. At 02:48 hours, Underwater Warfare Systems Operator Lieutenant Commander Sarah Fong detected a magnetic anomaly directly beneath the tanker's hull. A metallic mass moving in a pattern inconsistent with the ship's own structure. The shape matched the known magnetic profile of the improved Kilo's anechoic coating geometry at a statistical confidence of 94.3%. Fong's data burst went out via link 16 in 0.3 seconds. Newport News received it at 02:51 hours. Commander Voss had 18 minutes before the Almeria Star crossed into Omani territorial waters, where engagement rules changed completely. 18 minutes to execute the most complicated underwater intercept Fifth Fleet had ever attempted. No torpedo, no sunken tanker, no boghammer firefight landing on Trump's desk during his primetime address. Do you believe the U.S. Navy had a solution to this? Comment 1 below if you think this ends in silence. At 0304 hours, Voss transmitted a burst encrypted request to the 5th Fleet Command node aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, all operating 80 nautical miles to the southwest. The carrier's Combat Information Center was already at maximum alert. The previous 48 hours had been brutal. Iranian shore-based C-802 anti-ship missiles had twice targeted the escort destroyer USS Howard, forcing defensive maneuvers that burned 4 SM-2 Block 3B interceptors from its VLS cells. An Iranian parliamentary commission had formally approved tolls on vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz, a legal fiction for what was, in reality, Iran trying to control the choke point with mines, speedboats, and now a concealed submarine. Vice Admiral Thomas Crane, commanding the Lincoln Strike Group, reviewed Voss's tactical picture in 11 seconds. Then he authorized what the Newport news crew had privately already named the piano wire option. The plan did not involve a torpedo. It involved physics. At 3:11 hours, Commander Voss drove Newport News into a precise intercept course. Not toward the tanker, not toward the Kilo. She took her boat in a quiet arc at 4 knots, staying inside the thermocline layer at 190 feet, holding within the blind arc behind the Kilo's towed array sonar, the baffles, that zone of acoustic blindness a submarine creates with its own propulsion noise. Newport News slid to 600 meters directly aft of the Iranian Kilo. Same depth, invisible, then matched its speed exactly. 3.1 knots, 2 submarines, one completely unaware of the other. At the same time, 22,000 feet up, Lieutenant Commander Fong activated a precisely calculated active sonobuoy drop. Not scattered, mathematically triangulated. 6 DICAS active sonobuoys in a hexagonal formation around the tanker and the Kilo. It's each programmed to fire a directional active ping at 3.5-second intervals. In the confined waters of the Strait, the combined acoustic pressure from 6 active buoys hitting simultaneously was like a wall of sound. For the Kilo crew, it was like being inside a steel bell while someone hammered the outside. The sonar officer shouted in Farsi. The captain ordered a crash stop and a rapid course change, trained response instinctive. But that evasive turn broke the Kilo from the tanker's acoustic shadow for 4.2 seconds. It was enough. Newport News was already there. As the Kilo turned, Commander Voss activated a single active sonar ping. Not a weapons ping, a targeting ping. The AN/BQQ-10 signature, that specific frequency, pulse width, outer and repetition interval that every Iranian and Russian submarine officer has trained to recognize since the Cold War. The sound that means, we have you, we have had you for a while, and we have a firing solution. The active ping hit the Kilo's hull at 240 decibels. Inside the control room, bulkhead fittings rattled. The fire control console flickered. The Iranian captain, 20 years of submarine experience behind him, looked at his display and saw exactly what Voss wanted him to see. The acoustic silhouette of a Virginia-class submarine, 600 meters aft, positioned for a stern shot with an Mk-48 ADCAP torpedo. No counter move. The boghammer escort above was useless against a submarine at depth. The tanker's acoustic shadow was gone. His towed array was still recovering from the sonobuoy shock. At 0319 hours, Newport News sent a single compressed message to the Kilo via underwater acoustic modem, a technology NATO submarines have been deploying quietly in the Gulf since February. 12 words in Farsi. Blunt. Your position is known. Your torpedo doors are closed. Withdraw immediately. The Kilo's response came 4 minutes later. Not a message. A movement. The Iranian submarine began a slow, deliberate ascent, rising from 190 feet toward 60 feet, reducing speed to 1.5 knots, retracting its towed array. It was surfacing, not to fight. At the same moment, the 4 boghammer fast attack craft broke formation. 2 accelerated east toward Iranian waters. The other 2 lingered, then followed. The Almeria Star, now without escort or submarine, killed its engines and drifted, a supertanker dead in the water in the most contested channel on Earth. 30 miles to the southwest, the Abraham Lincoln's flight deck was already hot. 2 FA-18F Super Hornets from Strike Fighter Squadron 143 launched in paired succession, climbing to 15,000 feet over the intercept zone, not to attack, but to make clear the bog hammers shouldn't reconsider. Meanwhile, a Coast Guard Law Enforcement Detachment Lee DET, embarked on the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer USS Halsey, was preparing to board the Almeria Star in coordination with the Omani Maritime Security Center. The 2 million barrels of IRGC oil were going nowhere. But the operation was not over. At the exact moment Commander Voss was receiving the congratulatory burst from Fifth Fleet, at the exact moment Trump stepped to the podium in the White House Cross Hall flanked by Hegseth, Rubio, and Vance. A second contact appeared on Fong's magnetic anomaly display, not a kilo. The signature was different. Longer hull section, pump jet propulsion, quieter. Fong's voice was flat. High confidence contact. Type 877 EKM signature not consistent. Reevaluation indicates possible Fateh class SSK. Repeat, Fateh class. Iranian domestically produced. Confidence 71%. The Fateh. Iran's domestically built submarine, shorter range than the Kilo, but quieter in shallow water and armed with torpedo variants that could disable a carrier. U.S. intelligence had assessed only one operational Fateh was in service as of February. Strikes on Bandar Abbas. Naval base on March 13th were supposed to have neutralized it. They hadn't. In the White House Cross Hall, Trump was speaking. I did what no other president was willing to do. Again, and I'm telling you tonight, we have achieved all of our objectives. Iran's ballistic missiles are gone. Iran's navy is annihilated. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon again. On the deck plates of the Newport News, Commander Voss was already retasking her boat toward a new contact she had 14 minutes to locate before it potentially closed to torpedo range of the Abraham Lincoln. She looked at her executive officer. He looked back. Neither said anything. They had already begun the hunt. I'll be honest, the thing that stays with me about this engagement is how thin the margin was. Not in firepower, not in technology, but in time. 68 minutes. One aircraft flying in emissions control, one submarine in the right position, one acoustic ping at the right moment. Move any one of those pieces and the Kilo transits. The tanker moves. And the oil keeps flowing. The Almeria Star is dead in the water tonight, its cargo frozen in transit. The Kilo is withdrawing toward Bandar Abbas, its acoustic signature now in every P-8A's threat library. And somewhere beneath the Strait, a Virginia-class submarine is hunting a contact it hasn't fully confirmed yet. Because in this war, the one you haven't fully confirmed yet is the one that keeps you up at night. Has Iran held a final submarine card in reserve through the entire campaign? And if the Fateh confirms hostile intent tonight, does Fifth Fleet have the bandwidth to handle it without collapsing the Pakistan ceasefire? Drop your analysis in the comments. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications because the next file covers what CENTCOM has not said publicly about the Houthi missile that nearly reached Eilat last night. The intercept solution they used will change how you think about terminal phase air defense. Thank you for watching.